Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Rathke, giving a shout-out to...
Something else.
Something else, Daddy.
This is Mantell, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Something Else Podcast Network. I'm your host, Arya Whitner. Today, another action-packed, exciting show headlined by the North American champion Butch Reed and Jim the Anvil Neidhart as they take on Jerry and Marty Oates. Joining me this week to talk about all the action, you know him, you love him. Every week we get cards and letters telling us how much you want this man to be in the co-host chair. It's Trae. Trae, another great show here today.
Another great show here today indeed, Arya.
Are you as excited about Butch Reed and Jim Neidhart talking as Jim Ross is?
You gotta admire the man's enthusiasm for nothingness.
Oh, excitement and exciting was definitely the word of the week on both Mid-South and World Class, because good Lord, they said that about a dozen times on each show.
So I'm in the camp that Jim Ross is the greatest wrestling announcer of all time, and a lot of that is his ability to make anything seem a lot more important than it is.
I think we're putting that to the test this week. But hey, we can't talk about it until we talk about it. So let's go to the intro this week with Boyd Pierce and Jim Ross.
Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome
Let's try to do that.
to Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, and I'm Boyd Pierce, and we have a lot of exciting action coming up. A tag team match sees the speedy team from Columbus, Georgia, Jerry and Marty Oates, as they take on the rugged duo of Hacksaw Butch Reed and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. More tag team action later. We'll see the Junkyard Dog as he joins forces with the outdoorsman from the Minnesota Northwoods, Krusher Darsow. Also, we'll see Magnum TA in action. Lots of matches coming up here, and the man to tell you about it, I tell you there's almost none better, and that's Jim Ross. Jim?
Boy, thanks very much. It's always great to be here on Mid-South Wrestling. And wrestling fans, we have a taped interview that I'm really excited about showing you, because there's a new team on the scene. Hacksaw Butch Reed has formed an alliance with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and of course we've talked about the backgrounds of both men. We won't go into that right now, but one thing that we need to say at this point in time, that it may be the most brutal, most awesome team in all of professional wrestling. Of course, that point may be proven today because they've got some great opponents in Jerry and Marty Oates, but Neidhart and Reed made some comments earlier today. Let's listen to their comments now.
I want all you people to listen up and listen real good, because I got an introduction to make, and I got somebody I want to introduce to you that's just as bad and mean and nasty as I am. Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Because you understand it's a little old conspiracy going on around here to try to upset Butch Reed and get his nerves on edge where he can't think and where he might make some mistakes and lose his composure and lose his title along with it. So I'm getting me a little backup here, you understand, because a couple of weeks ago, we had us a little unauthorized lumberjack match out here with that greasy dog when I'm in the ring with Jim Duggan, beating his head into oblivion. So he gets all his little stooges out here, you understand, to upset me and take my mind off of Jim Duggan. The dog sucker punches me right out there. I get back in the ring and I get set up for old lousy spear. So what's going to happen now? You looking at two prime athletes right here, baby. You looking at two All-American college pro football players This man has been to college. He's been All-American. I've been All-American. We're nothing but athletes, and we're going to be nothing but devastation and destruction.
This is Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I'm teaming up with Butch, baby. He played pro football, and I played pro football with the Oakland Raiders. And you think the Oakland Raiders are an outlaw team? You haven't seen nothing yet, Jack, compared to this outlaw team. Because we're going to go in there, and we're going to take those belts. We're not going to wrestle. We're just going to go in there and take them.
You're talking about highway robbery out here. Me and the Anvil, baby, we're going to get a whole lot of straightening done around here in Mid-South.
We're going to see by the end of this show that it might be needed that we get some straightening on this show. But
go ahead.
Neidhart is wearing the Canadian tuxedo, but left his shirt in the back, and he has a cowboy hat on as well. It's quite the look.
I noted that you can tell Neidhart just came from Calgary with the cowboy hat and the Canadian tuxedo.
Neidhart also called them outlaw wrestlers. I know Corny's coming in next month. Nobody tell him he said that.
Kill his gimmick.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Oh, but I have an answer.
Apparently, this was taped in front of the live crowd before the broadcast. If they were gonna show it on the broadcast anyway, why wasn't it just quote unquote live?
Maybe they had to take more than one take.
Watts would probably fire him if they needed more than one take.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe they sent this out there to quote unquote entertain the marks in between the two tapings while Jim Ross and Boyd Pierce put on new suits.
Did they put on new suits?
I mean, I'm pretty sure this is not what they wore last week.
I'm not that observant.
Yes, and all I have to do is press the rewind button on the video I have pulled up to play all these clips to know for sure. And I'm not going to do that because, I don't know, that would be cheating somehow, some way.
I mean, it's not like it matters.
No, it really doesn't. So, from here we got our opener. It isn't the aforementioned North American champion Butch Reed and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Well, wow. There was a fly
What
that just
happened?
committed suicide.
Oh, I was confused.
Yes.
How did the fly
it
commit suicide?
It flew down my throat.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Did it think you were a frog?
Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah. Or he just didn't want me to talk about Jerry and Marty Oates. Marty Oates, in case you didn't listen to us last week, is of course Marty Jannetty. 1 second. Sorry about that. I tried to press mute, but I missed it.
Jerry Oates is Jerry Oates.
Yeah.
Maybe the fly was upset at the inconsistency that last week the Oateses were brothers, but now they're cousins. Anyway.
Yeah. I was happy that here on their penultimate appearance on TV, we got clarification that they're cousins and not brothers.
Oh, is this already the penultimate what's the word I'm looking for? The penultimate experience? I don't fucking know. The penultimate Oates Brothers experience?
Yes, I mean, they do wrestle on house shows over the next month or so, but unless any other house show matches make TV, this is it for them on TV. Mind you, I only looked up Marty, so for all I know, Jerry Oates is on the show for the next 2 years. I doubt it, but technically he could be.
That's a tragedy. Because Jerry Oates is immediately the best wrestler on the show, and I wish he was North American champion again. Like seriously, with DiBiase out of the territory, Jerry Oates is the best wrestler on this show.
I mean, honestly, that's sadly not saying too much.
That maybe you may have a point there, but I do in fact enjoy what I've seen of his wrestling here. So we got a little preview of the Rockers on the Hart Foundation with Neidhart and Marty.
Funny enough, I didn't even note that. But yes, I note that they said that Jerry was showing his experience when he scurried across the ring after Neidhart let him out of a headlock. Sorry, I'm sneezing my fucking head off over here.
It's rough. I'm sorry. I keep trying to well, do I need to talk? Do I need to wait? Did she pause or did the audio go out?
No,
we
tap
have
on
so
wood.
many...
We've had good audio since they've switched computers. Tap on wood.
Oh, that's good. So, I mean, the finish here was kind of fun because Jerry had the spinning toe hold on Neidhart, and then Reed tried to come off the top rope behind the referee's back, and Jerry just completely sidestepped him, and Reed just kind of ate shit. But then he threw Jerry over the top rope behind the referee's back and left poor Marty alone to get beat. And I don't know. It was a nice little match. I noted that I guess the Oateses are meant to be a pushed act because they were halfway protected on this finish because Reed should have been DQ'd twice here. But if they're only on TV one more time, I guess maybe the concern wasn't about protecting them.
Yep. I liked when Butch took Marty's head and ran it into Neidhart's head.
That Neidhart got a hard head.
Yes, he does. It's almost like he's a Samoan with how hard his head is. Or he's
got a head like an
African-American.
anvil.
Yes. So Marty at one point does what was allegedly a drop kick, but Reed was so close that it looked more like a standing double foot stomp.
I mean, that's a spot that people do now. Maybe Marty was just ahead of his time.
I mean, he really was in some ways.
That's true. That's true.
All right. So yeah, Neidhart pins him after a Samoan drop. Now,
you think Marty? You think Marty would be remembered as one of the best workers of the '90s if he hadn't been such a fuck up?
The early '90s, because once WCW really started putting out all the great workers of the time, Marty would have been Alex Wright. And no offense to Alex Wright, no offense to Marty Jannetty, they're both very good, but you don't remember them as the great workers of the time.
Yeah, it's fair.
All right, so I'm going to play a little clip here that shows just what a liar Jim Ross is. And while that's happening, I'm going to blow my nose because after I sneezed 37 times, I got to blow my nose. Let's go to Jim Ross right now.
Well, wrestling fans, if you remember...
Oh, for fuck's sake.
2 weeks ago, an exciting match here on Mid-South Wrestling pitted George Weingroff against Boris Zerkoff. Well, George Weingroff won that match. A very hard-fought match it was indeed, but an impressive victory for George Weingroff. And then a newcomer came on the scene. The giant Russian Nikolai Volkov came into the ring. He denounced the man that was defeated. He denounced Boris Zerkoff, saying that Zerkoff was not a Russian. He was an American born of Russian parents. That Nikolai Volkov, all 313 pounds of him, was the true Russian in this professional wrestling sport. That he comes from the motherland. He's very proud of coming from the motherland and being a national hero in Russia. It was an exciting encounter. Needless to say, we have the edited highlights of that match, and we're going to join that match in progress. It was a very exciting match. Let's see those highlights now.
Why did JR have to lie to us like that? He kept talking about what an exciting match it was last week.
Yeah, that was the only lie in that.
Um, so yeah, they re-showed the match from 2 weeks ago with Boris Zurkov's giant head and George Weingroff's giant head. And George Weingroff won, and then Nikolai Volkov broke kayfabe and said that Boris wasn't a real Russian, unlike him. Good for him. I
I
mean,
mean,
I know we're supposed to boo him because, oh no, he's pro-Russia, he's Russian. It's like he's proud of his homeland, you know? 99% of the people on the show
Yugoslavia.
are proud of being American, and we don't boo them for being proud of their homeland or their kayfabe homeland. But Nikolai Volkov, oh no, that motherfucker, we need to boo him. Boo this man.
Well, if you'd listen to Bill Watts, he'd explain it to you. These Russians are bad.
Well,
They
you see, geopolitical Bill Watts hasn't been on the show in 2 weeks.
What a shame. You think
Honestly, I'm
he's off
Mhm.
teaching a college political science class somewhere?
I am honestly expecting him to come onto the show, once a week during Nikolai Volkov's match, like he does every so often. He'll just show up for one match and that's it, just to rip on Nikolai. But nope, he hasn't done that. But don't worry, he'll be here soon enough.
Well, that's a relief.
So then we get Nikolai Volkov versus George Weingroff's giant penis. Um, I did they like sign him to a fucking extension this week and up his pay or something? Because Boyd was sucking his dick like we haven't heard in a few months.
I mean, George Weingroff is very familiar with extensions and presumably having his dick sucked.
You would think he was John Mantell from the way they blow him, but at least John Mantell never loses. He never wins, but he never loses.
I don't know.
Then,
It's goofy. Go on.
and then Volkov wins with the same backbreaker he used last week, where it looks like he's breaking the guy's neck in the process. And it's possible that he was just trying to get Weingroff to suck his own dick in the process.
The thing sucks. He needs a new finisher right now.
I I don't remember him winning that many times, so I can't even tell you what his WWF finisher was. Maybe a bear hug? I don't
Hey,
know.
so this is a random aside because we never do that on this podcast. But I was trying to
No.
figure out the timeline. Did they bring Zukov into the WWF to team with Volkov because the Sheik got fired, or was that just kind of a, I don't know,
I,
kind of in
I
the
don't know
same
if
general time?
I don't know if it was necessarily cause and effect, but that was basically what they did.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
was I had on some of the Wrestling with Regret classic pay-per-view reviews just for background noise today, and I noticed so at WrestleMania 3, Volkov and Sheik were still a team, and then by Survivor Series, the Bolsheviks were a thing.
Yeah, because it was June when Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik decided to break kayfabe, brother. And
Well,
yeah,
the cops broke the kayfabe.
yes. Who broke the kayfabe?
The cops,
Oh, okay.
the police.
So
We should.
Boris Zukov's his last match in the AWA was September 27th, 1987. He teamed with Soldat Ustinov to lose the AWA tag team titles to the Midnight Rockers. The next day, they lost a rematch on a Continental show in Alabama, and then he debuted a week later in Lincoln, Nebraska for the WWF, defeating the legend Scott Casey.
Oh, high
And
quality
then
competition right there.
his TV debut was the next day. They taped Superstars in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He was in a 10-man battle royal won by Bam Bam Bigelow, which was also the debut of the renamed Ultimate Warrior. Like he'd been wrestling as Dingo Warrior, but this was the debut as the Ultimate Warrior.
He should have just
So
been the Dingo. Would have been a more accurate description.
Hulk Hogan versus the Dingo at WrestleMania 6.
There you go.
Yeah. And hey, to bring it back to Mid-South, his fourth match, he wrestles Lanny Poffo. So,
Lanny Poffo and I don't even know where to start with Lanny Poffo.
we have a few minutes before we get to that. Because first we got to talk about the Mid-South scale. In fact, it's not even just the Mid-South scale. We're going to talk about this during World Class 2. It's the scale that they use in Louisiana and Texas. They must get it at the same store, and that shit is broken. Because up next, we had Junkyard Dog and Krusher Darsow versus Frank LaVert and Tom Stanton. Junkyard Dog, who he's well into his junk food dog days here. He's introduced as 295 pounds, which I'm not going to weigh him. So if you want to say 295, go right ahead. But then Krusher Darsow, who is not as fat as Junkyard Dog is listed as 303 pounds. I call bullshit.
You know what they say, muscle weighs more than fat.
And I guess Dog has plenty of one. JR again says this match will be exciting. At this point, I'm not sure he knows what the meaning of that word is. He was also very impressed that Darsow knew how to tag out. And if I'm Barry Darsow, I'm offended by the insanely low expectations JR has set for him.
If somebody said that kind of thing about me, I would just change my allegiance and turn my back on the whole country.
Indeed. The Faces did a double team punch to the face, but it's not quite, it's not a double punch to the face. Instead, Darsow whipped his opponent into the ropes, and when he came off, Dog did the punch to the face because it would be unfair for them to do a double punch to the face. And anyway, Darsow submitted LaVert with an over-the-shoulder backbreaker.
I kind of love Frank LaVert. Like, he's flabby and pale, and he sucks. Just classic TV job guy.
He is a perfect jobber. We then had Magnum TA versus Doug Vines. I spent most of this match confirming that this is in fact the same Doug Vines who feuds with the world's most popular wrestler Mike Samples in that indie promotion that R.D. Reynolds used to do commentary for, that he has on the Worst of R.D. DVD, where he runs over Mike Samples in a car at 2 miles per hour. Unfortunately, he did not get into a car and drive away from here, and that may have helped since he lost the TA with a belly-to-belly suplex.
Second best match on the show, more by default than anything else.
I was gonna say, I thought I thought we had low expectations for Darsow.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that clip anyway of Doug Vines running over Mike Samples?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, it's tremendous. Especially because the announcer who isn't RD is like overacting to the nth degree about how Mike Samples saved his life by pushing him out of the way of the car that was lurching forward if it was going more than 2 miles per hour, I'd be shocked.
Eddie Gilbert was turning over in his grave.
And then RD, who's like 6'4", 6'5", is taller than all the wrestlers who come out to save Mike. So he's like slouching down against the wall behind them.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
It's tremendous.
No.
Speaking of tremendous, Mike Bond's jacket. He had a very shiny jacket. And
I did not make note of that.
Well, he teamed with Art Cruz to do battle with Max and King Kong Bundy with General Skandor Akbar. Yes, this show is full of tag team matches. Teddy Long may have been booking this shit. Boyd, in fact, puts over all the exciting tag teams we've seen this week, but doesn't mention Frank Lovert and Tom Stanton. If I'm Lovert and Stanton, I'd be pissed.
How dare he disrespect Frank Lovert, so.
Yes. Max slams his head into the turnbuckle and then misses the middle rope splash. Maybe if he wasn't giving himself a turnbuckle smash, he would have done better here. Rangy Mike Bond was doing well against Bundy until he wasn't. Max had a middle rope headbutt to the kidneys, and then Bundy pinned him with the splash. Rangy Mike Bond may have a shiny jacket, but unlike Dog, he did not kick out at 4.5.
Yeah, if you can't tell, these are some nothing happening ass matches this week.
This is everything I wrote about the next match. The perennial Alabama Junior Heavyweight Champion Mike Jackson versus Sam Hall. There are still 16 minutes left on this show. Jesus fucking Christ, Mike won.
I wrote, thank you, Mike Jackson, for making the show mildly interesting for a few seconds.
And then.
And then. Oh, boy.
So, I don't know what Lanny Poffo's sexual preference is. You know, I've never heard anyone talk about him being married. I've never really heard about his, sex life at all, except Ole Anderson claimed he could suck his own dick. I I don't know, but Lanny Poffo did play, the genius who at least at the beginning was supposed to be gay, you know. And then of course he's in a feud with Brutus Beefcake, who's from San Francisco, California. So, the crowd was just loving that feud. Um, with that said, Lanny Poffo was on his way into Mid-South here. And I got a little excited because I know of a pretty fun little angle that's coming up here that involves Lanny. So I'm like, okay, the good shit's on its way here. Well,
is it the angle that he can suck his the angle that he can suck his dick from?
I don't believe so, no.
Darn.
Well, so we get a videotaped promo, and videotape might be over crediting this. We get a video filmed with a camcorder at best, where he's standing in front of a wall and talking about, what a good clean cut baby face he is, and how he's going to be here on the show next week. And then we immediately cut to the most homoerotic music video you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah. Look,
this man.
I'm gonna say this, and it's not. I have no prejudice against the LGBT community. I'm not using this in a derisive way. I am only using it as an adjective. This is the gayest thing I've ever seen in my life.
There are less gay things that happen in prison on a daily basis.
Oh my God.
God bless you, whoever that was.
Oh, I guess that was a weird laugh that sounded like a sneeze somehow.
Oh, I thought it was somebody sneezing back there. Anyway, I can't even explain this video and what makes it so gay. Like, go look up the show on YouTube. This is just like he begins posing very homoerotically, By the way, he's got abs. I don't think I've ever noticed him having abs before, but he's got abs. He informs us that his favorite hold is when the referee raises his hand in victory. He trusts in God. He loves his country, and win or lose, he will always do his best. And then he had a child standing on his shoulders. And I believe it was the same child who then said his favorite wrestler was Leaping Lanny Poffo because he doesn't break any rules.
You're not conveying that adequately, I don't feel. It's let me see if I can mimic it more successfully. Wait. Why is Lanny Poffo your favorite wrestler? Because he don't break any rules. How was that?
Why was that child? Why was that child standing on his shoulders?
Who the fuck knows? So, for the last 2 weeks, they said that Lanny Poffo would be here next week, and then this week we get a video package and another promise that he'll be here next week. I am probably the first person to ever make this comparison, but Lanny Poffo was the new Mil Mascaras.
I don't remember them saying he'd be here last week.
Well, maybe my brain just auto-fills in shit. I don't know.
It's possible they did. I mean, to be fair, I did fall asleep during that Max match and never went back to rewatch it. So, it's very possible. No. And then because they didn't tape enough shit, is my best guess. For some reason, they re-aired almost the entire Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase in a Ted DiBiase Leaves Town match from a few weeks ago.
Yes, they did.
Jim Duggan still won. In case you thought like they would re-edit it so DiBiase won or something.
There wasn't any kind of temporal fuckery afoot here.
There was not. And then Boyd informs us that next week we'll be back.
I hope so.
I mean, we're still 4 years away from December 87, so I hope we'll be back next week.
Be weird if they weren't.
Also, Jim Duggan may be here too, because apparently we have negotiations are ongoing for a tag team title match where Jim Duggan and TA defend against the undefeated tag team of Butch Reed and Jim Neidhart.
I honestly, I was trying to remember during the show who the tag team champions were. I remembered it was Magnum TA, but I couldn't remember if he was champions with Duggan or Dog.
It is in fact Duggan.
Where the fuck has Duggan been? Like, he wasn't on either of these tapings.
Probably the same place Mr. Wrestling 2 is. Wherever the hell that is.
The Omnomni?
The Omnomni in Atlanta, Georgia with Larry Labisco.
Yeah. Let's see, what month are we in? September, October?
October.
No, he's in the territory. He's working house shows. I don't know.
Well, sometimes you need to rest people's face because when you have a territory that only has like 10 people in it and you have the same matches every week, it can grow old. With that said, let's go to Bill Mercer, who's going to talk to us about the intro of this week's World Class show from the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas.
Championship Wrestling at the Sportatorium, famed around the world for its tremendous wrestling. Our main event tonight is an earthshaker. It features the young man from Denton County, the uncrowned World Heavyweight Champion, Kerry Von Erich, and his adversary from the Freebirds, the man with the Oriental Spike, Terry Gordy. Oh, is that big? Is that exciting? Those two battling here in the ring at the Sportatorium in our main event. Well, there's lots more action, too. And we'll be right back with Buddy Roberts and John Mantell next on World Class Championship Wrestling.
Oh, man, that is going to be an earth shaker today. Kerry versus Terry. I don't know how the world continued to exist after that match.
I think that they're scared that the world will fall apart if Von Erich doesn't wrestle the Freebird on TV every week.
And this despite the fact that we have some absolute world-class matchups this week on the show. Just
oh man,
all-time classics. Like our opener, it's Buddy Roberts versus John Mantell And Mark Lawrence said that this match had a 15-minute time limit. And I wrote, I swear to God, if this goes to the 15-minute time limit, we are not watching this fucking show anymore. But it turns out Mark Lawrence was drunk, and this is only a 10-minute time limit.
See, they said it was a 10-minute time limit unless he fucked it up and then corrected it. Because I noted that a few weeks ago they wrestled in the opening match with a 15-minute time limit and Mantell won. So now they have a rematch in the opening match with the 10-minute time limit, and that somehow makes perfect sense.
I'm 99% sure at first he said it was a 15-minute time limit and then corrected himself.
It's entirely possible. He was drunk.
And do you even blame him at this point? Like,
no, I would be drunk if I was on this show.
So Buddy takes his wig off, and I might be the only person to ever make this comparison, but without his wig, I thought he looked a lot like Brutal Bob Evans.
Huh. I just don't understand how he got his head shaved 3.5 months ago and none of his hair is growing back. If I don't get a haircut once a month, I look unruly.
Hey, like we said last week, Kurt Angle's been bald for 22 years. And, except for that brief time he was on drugs in TNA, his hair never really started to grow back.
So what you're saying is that Buddy Roberts is not on drugs here.
I mean, I think that would be the reason why, because if he was on drugs, his hair would grow back. And using that logic, I guess, yes, Molly Holly and Serena Deeb are both on drugs, or at least were both on drugs. I mean, Serena did fall off the wagon off the straight edge society, so it is possible.
I'm so disappointed that during that very brief period, like a couple of weeks, when Serena Deeb and Luke Gallows and Punk were all in AEW, that they didn't at least do like a backstage segment where, I don't know, Serena's partying with the Good Brothers and Punk just steps in and looks at him in disgust and walks away.
That's totally something they would do, which makes it shocking they never did it.
So
I think
I've
got a theory. So Buddy is now bald, and Bill Mercer weirdly shaved his mustache a few months ago. Do you think Bill Mercer shaved his mustache to show hair solidarity to Buddy?
Do you think that his mustache is not growing back because he's just on a little bit of drugs?
He's not on enough drugs. I think after the backstage segment that we're going to get to later, I think that mustache is going to be back soon.
If he wasn't on drugs before that, he probably was after.
He needs to forget this ever happened. So Mercer tells us that Terry Gordy learned the Oriental Spike from the Oriental Professor of Martial Arts. How does one get a position as a professor of martial arts?
I don't know.
Apparently, Gordy needs to go back to school, though, because we get informed that Bruiser Brody survived the Oriental Spike last week. So I'm happy that Brody managed to survive the 80s. I bet Brody's living a good life right now in wherever the hell he lives.
Yeah, can't kill Brody, clearly.
I wrote that we had a shoot 5-minute call, and this is when I started getting worried. Mantell put a headlock on, and Buddy gets his feet on the ropes to break the hold. Now, I'm fully expecting, because it's Buddy Roberts, he's the comedy guy of the Freebirds, that, he has his feet on the ropes to break the hold. And so the referee's going to force Mantell to break, and John Mantell's going to let go, and Buddy's going to crash face first on the mat. It's a funny little spot that's happened in wrestling before. But unfortunately, Bronco Lubick is a fucking moron because Bronco Lubick takes Buddy's feet off of the ropes.
Honestly, the title of this podcast most weeks could be Bronco Lubick is a fucking moron.
I think he needs a copy of your Rules of Pro Wrestling book.
I need to get on
And
that.
I wrote that I can't fucking believe this, but the match went to the 10-minute time limit draw. Who is John
Which was
Mantell blowing?
almost a legitimate 10 minutes this week. They went 9:55. Now, I will say we're giving this match a lot of shit. This match was well wrestled.
I would hate John Mantell less if he either won all the fucking time or just at least did some sort of 50-50 booking. Like, if you're gonna fucking push this guy down our throats, just let him fucking win all the time. Like, this shit where he wrestles 10 matches and 9 of them are 10-minute time limit draws, it's driving me up a fucking wall.
He is
It's like, you're gonna push.
He is simultaneously not pushed at all, but like incredibly protected.
Yes. It's like people complain about Eric Watts, getting favoritism when Bill was booking. But like, motherfucker, I bet we could watch 1992 WCW and Eric Watts was not nearly as protected as John Mantell is here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's ridiculous.
So I do have some breaking news for you here. They keep saying Harley Race is coming in without specifying any dates. And we've been hoping for weeks now that he was coming in on Black Friday. Well, I'm afraid that I have some bad news. He was here this past week.
The like, huh?
Yep.
So the
Sorry.
week before, well,
the week before right now, where they're still plugging that he'll be here soon.
Did he have another match with the Von Erich that they're going to play multiple times over the next several months?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure of it. So the Mid-South scale made its way to Dallas this week as Cowboy Bill Rathke took on Iceman Parsons. And Iceman Parsons is introduced as 244 pounds. That sounds believable. I mean, again, I'm not sitting here putting him on the scale, but 244 seems about right. Bill Rathke, who is a very large, very fat man, is introduced as 246 pounds. Bull fucking shit. Maybe 346.
So this fucking match, had a 15-minute time limit. It's so fucking arbitrary.
And then Bill Rathke, we're going to simultaneously bury him and put him over on this show because the finish of this match, Iceman sends him into the ropes for she calls that the rear view. And instead of bouncing off the ropes like every normal human being on the face of the earth would do and being sent into the ropes, Rathke stops, steps between the ropes, and jumps to the floor. Parsons just looks at him like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Rathke knows he fucked up, and he gets back in the ring, and this time he gets shot to the ropes and given that she calls that the rear view for real. And Iceman Parsons wins.
Indeed. And that's not the end of us seeing a side of Bill Rathke we've never seen before on this show.
Yes. Well, up next, we had a very bullshit moment in the history of World Class Championship Wrestling. They promised us a skit with Sunshine, building up to the fact that we're going to meet her new assistant here next week. And Peacock edited it off of the network, or WWE edited it off the network. The point is, somebody edited it off the network. And my reaction is the same as Roddy Piper's at the 1991 Royal Rumble. And in fact, since we can't play Sunshine, let's play Roddy Piper's reaction to Sergeant Slaughter winning the WWF title.
The winner of this bout and new World
I always loved Roddy Piper screaming, "That's bull."
Classic.
Of course, I don't know how often you've watched that match. I'm sure you watch it, 10 times a day. Um, but my favorite is Savage comes out, hits Warrior with the scepter. Slaughter makes the cover. The referee counts to 3, and Gorilla Monsoon and Roddy Piper are convinced that that means it's going to be a disqualification, and that Warrior's going to keep the belt.
Because that's how that works.
Yes. Then I found myself in a new circle of hell. You Facebooked me a few days ago, and you told me about a tag team that was on World Class. And then I watched Mid-South, and I saw some of these fucking tag teams on Mid-South, and I'm like, did I read that wrong? Did he mean Mid-South when he talked about some weird-ass tag team? No, you weren't talking about Mid-South, man.
Oh, if only.
We have Chris Adams and David Von Erich on one side, and on the other side is the Mongol and Boris Zurkov.
What a fucking team. General Akbar's finest.
General Skandor Akbar is in their corner for this. The Mongol and Boris Zurkov. We have zero Sunshine video packages, but we do get the Mongol and Boris Zurkov as a tag team.
I'm surprised you got through this match and didn't just quit the podcast.
Just a reminder that Chris Adams says that he follows the Mongol all over the world. You know what? I think we need to make sacrifices. And I'm willing to sacrifice Chris Adams from this territory if it means no more the Mongol.
Or the Mongol.
Of course, if we didn't have the Mongol, we couldn't have Bill Mercer tell us that, and I quote, the Mongol wants to beat off David Von Erich.
I bet he does.
I'm not sure that's something we should subject our children to. Boris then slapped on something called the Russian Bear, and I didn't see Ivan Koloff anywhere nearby. But when I looked it up, Ivan doesn't have a recorded match between September 24th and October 25th. So maybe he was in the arena. Who knows?
And he was slapped on here.
Exactly. Mercer then made fun of the back of Boris's head for some reason. And I'm just waiting for all the heels to kick Bill Mercer's ass. Because he body shames everybody.
By the way.
Go ahead.
By the way, Boris is just a Russian again because nobody in Dallas gets Mid-South TV.
They still follow kayfabe, damn it. Boris tried to make himself, and I quote, a little Sputnik, whatever the hell that means. But David flips him off the top rope and hot tags in Chris Adams. The finish saw a 4-way breakout, and I don't know. Did the referee call for a disqualification?
I think so.
So the bell rang, and David Von Erich and Chris Adams were declared the winner. David had the claw on Akbar, who was on the apron, and Mercer announced that the young Fritz Von Erich claw type has struck again. Is Bill Mercer still alive? Because if so, we need him on this program.
I have no idea. So I have a few comments to make. One is that the Mongol's head is all bloody and bandaged because this was like probably an hour after he did that ridiculous gig job for the claw on last week's show. So when Mongol tagged in against David and David did the claw motion, I really wanted him to clamp it on and have Mongol immediately start pouring blood again. And that's what would have happened if Kim Mantell were a good booker.
Yes, unfortunately, Ken Mantell is not. And who knows what would have happened had Gary Hart not gotten screwed on the payoff for Christmas week.
And then they get the heat on David, which wasn't like a wrong choice. It was just bizarre. But yeah, I think the referee called for the DQ because Akbar was on the apron.
Maybe. Well, then, oh my God, then we get a segment.
The best
It's 30
segment
seconds long.
Been on any of these shows since I started watching them.
This is a segment that is why people watch old school wrestling and why it's hard to watch modern day wrestling in comparison. Let's go now to Bill Mercer, who was in the locker room area with General Skandor Akbar.
All right, you wanted the Von Erichs. David Von Erich gave you the claw. You had enough of them now, Akbar.
Enough. This is just the beginning. This is time for Kamala. Whatever combination, Kerry, Kevin, David, and you, Fritz, if you want it, you got Kamala. Do you understand? And I'm going to ban that claw. I've got enough power, money, and influence to ban that claw. And that's what's going to happen. It's war. It's war.
Hey, what? How about you guys get that mic and back the camera out here? I'm taking a shower.
Oh my God. I watched that about a dozen times.
I watched this so many times, and I was laughing so hard that my wife came to check on me because, like, apparently she can't tell if I'm laughing or crying, and so when I'm laughing just on end for minutes, she gets concerned. So yeah, this caused some concern because I ran this back at least half a dozen times.
So the first half a dozen times, I didn't even notice that like you could see Bill Rathke looking over at them periodically because they're standing in front of the shower and there's no curtain on the shower either. So, and Bill Rathke, I don't know, we didn't see his lower half, but he was definitely naked from the waist up at the very least. And he just pushes fucking Mercer away, and you see the wet handprint on the back of Mercer's jacket. And fucking Akbar looks at the camera, and you could tell he's like biting his tongue to stop from laughing because of how absurd this is. And everyone just kind of looks around like, are we really gonna keep this take?
They could have gone out into the hallway and filmed this again. It would not have been difficult.
I could. Okay, this is, I doubt that this is a shoot, but it's like if you told me that Bill Rathke was really taking a shower and he really like poked his head in and shoved them kind of as a rib, I'd believe you. And then they kept it in because it's just fucking tremendous. And it's like Akbar cut his promo. He's bringing in Kamala, and he also wants to ban the claw. It's been a year since he got the pile driver unbanned in Mid-South, and then he got pile driven a couple times by Iron Mike Sharp. So, hey, he's got some oil money to spend. But
this is fantastic segment.
Bill Rathke, the worst wrestler in his match, because he's not even the worst wrestler on the show, but the worst wrestler in his match, redeemed himself fully right here.
Absolutely. Bill Rathke is a treasure.
And unfortunately, Bill Rathke doesn't have a cage match profile, so he may be here for the next 6 years, and he may never be here again. But, don't be sad because he's gone. Be happy because we had the experience.
We should start a petition to get Bill Rathke a cage match profile.
We should start a petition to get him in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe I should write him in as a vote on the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame. I bet Dave responds by letting me keep ballots next year. So then we get our main
One
event.
of these days.
A match that could be the main event anywhere in the country. As a matter of fact, we've seen this match about 37 times in the 20 weeks we've been reviewing World Class. It's Terry Gordy versus Kerry Von Erich. Both men are in black trunks and white boots, and the only way to tell them apart is Gordy is wearing black knee pads while Kerry was wearing white. That is obviously the only way to tell the difference between Kerry Von Erich and Terry Gordy.
Because they look so similar.
Yes. Mercer tells us that Kerry is a devastator who does his opponents in very well. Gordy chokes Kerry for a 7 count. Now, you might recall that it's a 5 count that leads to a disqualification, but referee Jerry Usher don't give a fuck. And he gave Gordy a 7 count before he broke it. We do get informed that next week is going to be David Von Erich versus Jimmy Garvin, who will have 2 valets. 2. And watch, that'll get ended off the fucking show, too.
He'll have a valet, and his valet will have a valet.
Yes. Gordy fluttered across the ring so Kerry could rat-a-tat-tat his head 6 times. Gordy eventually applied the Oriental Spike, but let it go so he could inflict more damage. David Von Erich, who is a dick and can't let either of his brothers have some success, walks to the ring, physically gets in the ring, and puts Terry in the claw, so Gordy wins by disqualification. And then Mercer says David is looking more and more like Fritz. I'm like, that is the meanest thing he's ever said.
He said that David is resembling Fritz more and more, and I just assume that he means that David is an unrepentant dickhead.
I mean, the way this has been going lately, yes. Yes, I'd totally go with that. Chris Adams eventually came in to cradle Kerry's head long after Terry Gordy had left the arena.
Yeah, shockingly, the match between the best wrestler in the territory and the most over babyface in the territory was pretty good. Gordy took a body slam on that hard-ass Sportitarian floor, which had to suck. And then David was a dick and ruined everything.
Indeed. So this week and last week's show were taped September 23rd at the Sportatorium. There were 7 matches. Of those 7 matches, one of them was a time limit draw, which, by the way, Cage Match List says 15 minutes, even though A, it was a 10-minute draw and B, it was 9:55. And 2, 3 of the 7 matches ended in a disqualification.
Wow. I was just looking at it. Yeah, you're right. Jesus.
In fact, the only person who did a clean job on both shows was poor Bill Rathke, who at least got to shower at some point.
Bill Rathke is a goddamn professional.
He is professional. What do you think this week's show title should be? Bill Rathke Bathes? Bill Rathke Bumps and Bathes?
Just Bill Rathke is in the shower.
To the point. All right. So we managed to get this in a little over an hour, give or take.
Yeah, there was not much on these shows.
Oh, I mean, between Lanny Poffo and Bill Rathke, I thought we'd have an hour of material just there.
You know, wouldn't that be a matchup? Let's get Bill back over to Shreveport and make that happen.
Let's do some digging here because Lanny Poffo definitely has a cage match, and let's see.
Lanny might even join Bill in the shower after.
Oh my God, that sounds so much worse than it you mean it to be. I'm sure. And by the way, unfortunately, there's no recorded match ever between Lanny Poffo and Bill Rathke.
That's
Of course,
just
now, of
a
course,
travesty.
that doesn't mean they never wrestled, just that it never got recorded. You know, it's possible that it blew the world up when they did wrestle.
There's still hope.
By the way, Lanny's going to be here for about 7 months. So I hope you like
Wow.
the guy.
Well, if we don't, we
And
better
if
fucking
not,
get used to him.
I'd say if not, just wait until the end of May. Because, spoiler alert, he leaves at the end of May.
Lanny's actually a
In
pretty
fact,
good worker. So,
his last match is a house show match where he teams with someone named Mark Ragen.
Mark Ragen.
Yes, and Mark Ragen apparently does have a cage match profile. Let's see who that is. Apparently he also wrestled as Mark Reagan. So, there's Mark Reagan and Mark Ragen. And his last series of matches were a fucking All Japan tour in 1998. Where he teams with,
I think
among other people, he teams with Wolf Hawkfield, aka Jungle Jim Steele, Giant Kamala, and Johnny Smith.
yeah, I had to go look this up for myself. Okay. He didn't really, I don't know. Jado and Gato against Giant Kamala and Mark Reagan. I bet that was a barn burner.
I mean, I think it's a loser must retire match since Mark Reagan never wrestles again.
He did have a singles match with Monakia Mossman, who the future Taiokeia.
Yes. And Giant Kamala actually continued to wrestle until 2005. And his last match is teaming with Abdullah the Butcher to defeat Dory Funk Jr. and Katsuhiko Nakajima on a Wrestle One show.
In 2005,
Yes.
let's see. Dory would have been in his 60s, and Nakajima would have been about 15. That's probably why they did it. The oldest wrestler they could find and the youngest wrestler they could find.
And that was the opener. Main event was Bob Sapp versus Jun Akiyama.
I bet that was something. I think I have some of those. I have some of those somewhere.
You may not want to watch the show, or at least skip the third match.
What is?
Because Team 3D defeats the Voodoo Murders.
Which configuration of the Voodoo Murders?
Chuck Palumbo and Johnny Stamboli.
Oh God, I was. If you would have said Shuji Kondo and Brother Yashi, I would have been like, well, I bet that was pretty fun, but
nope.
Fuck that.
Oh Lord, that just sounds like some real tremendous wrestling. And like fucking Team 3D at that time, they have this show and then they go on an all Japan tour like pretty much immediately. And that was the show where they had to fly in from Japan in time for the TNA Bound for Glory show, that they like barely got there in time to run in on the main event.
And then they won the World's Strongest Tag League that year and were never seen in All Japan again.
So apparently, you're not the only entity who hates Bully Ray.
I believe, if I remember right, there was a money issue.
Well, I mean, All Japan was not exactly, setting the world on fire at this point.
No, they were barely chugging along.
This was also when I'm not TNA, but when Team 3D was like demanding like $15,000 to do indie shows. And
holy fuck.
Yeah. And needless to say, there weren't many indie companies willing to lose that much money.
I just can't imagine paying 15 grand to see Bully Ray.
To be fair, he only got 7,500. You're paying 7,500 for Devon.
I paid the whole 15 grand to Devon and had him come by himself and do a handicap match. Just out of spite.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy. All right. So I think we can begin to wrap things up. Do you want to plug your fantastical podcast that people can listen to other than this one, of course?
Yeah. What is it? OhMyGodcast.com. We're watching ECW from the beginning when it's still Eastern Championship Wrestling, even like Eddie Gilbert is still the booker at this point. We started all the way like the earliest the earliest extant footage of ECW, and then we've been watching the TV every week. So yeah.
Uh,
It's not any worse
I
than
like
this show.
I like that you asked me what you were watching. Like, you know, I mean, I could
I
tell
was
you, but I
asking
mean,
I was asking myself.
okay. So, any thoughts on Pete Rose or Dikembe Mutombo passing away today?
Uh, sad about Pete Rose, who I'm not really familiar with his other work, but he got killed by a future fascist mayor at 3 consecutive WrestleManias. That's his lasting legacy. Also,
And he got a stink face.
yeah. Chris Christopherson passed away yesterday as we're recording this, and that one hurt. Chris Christopherson, great actor, great singer, absolutely legendary songwriter. I'm sure if you've only heard like one song that he wrote, it probably would have been Sunday Morning Coming Down, or because Johnny Cash had a big hit with that one. He also wrote Me and Bobby McGee, which was covered by Janis Joplin, among many others. He played Whistler in the Blade movies. Another thing that, so yeah, there's a connection. He was in a movie with Triple H, and also his son Jody did some pro wrestling for a while. Was in NXT for a couple of years. Never really made it very far, but yeah. R.I.P. Chris Christopherson. R.I.P. Pete Rose. The other fellow as well. I don't really know. Was he a basketball player?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know basketball. I don't know baseball either. I only know Pete Rose from wrestling.
Did you see John Cena was on The Simpsons?
I did. I haven't watched it, but I heard about it.
Someone said he looked like if Dave Meltzer was animated into The Simpsons, and I could totally see that.
I absolutely see it.
Maybe they're secretly related. Who knows?
Huh. Could be. Never thought of that.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. I want to thank everyone for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the Trainwreck podcast that we try to put out every week. And if not, too bad, because we'll be back next week to do it again. But thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.